Money Vikings, Money Viking G here. Hope you're having a good one and welcome back. Thank you for joining. I got a really good one for you today, and it's going to focus in on 5 simple ways to get your budget under control. And I like to focus on really simple, straightforward steps to do things, not kind of stuff that takes a lot of, frankly, things that take a lot of effort. And that's because we're also busy. We have so much going on in our lives. And I know how personal finance is for most people. It's very challenging for most people. For probably the majority of people, it's very challenging. So try to give these sort of quick, very straightforward ways that can totally improve your situation. With that, I've got to make a comment about a lot of market volatility. So the market goes down on the president's words and then shoots back up on the president's words. So we're in this volatility period where there's a lot of uncertainty about how the tariffs are all going to shake out, how different kinds of negotiations between countries are going to shake out, all that kind of macro stuff. I would say this about it. Keep in mind, for your personal situation, for all of us, we really have no control over any of this stuff, right? And our world and our country have gone through, our world and our country constantly, there's something going on, right? It's just sort of part of the human drama. And basically there's always something new happening that is newsworthy, that is drama between countries, that's, economics, various things going on. But what you have to realize is that through all that time, the good companies that are in a well-diversified, let's say SPY, S&P 500 index, that is self-cleansing, by the way, over time. The weaker companies drop out, stronger companies get added in. You don't have to do a thing about it. Those who just stay the course and dollar cost average in over decades usually do very well. And that's when you're going to see those average 10% annual returns. Now, on a year-to-year basis, that will fluctuate a lot. You'll have some years you're up 20%. You'll have some years you're down 10%. You'll have another year you're up 30%. You'll have a year you're down 30%, which those are more rare. You'll have a year that's up 7%, but it averages out to this sort of steady flow going up. So that's just the main thing you have to keep in mind. With all this volatility, don't let it get to you psychologically. Again, go back to some of our earlier videos. I talk a lot about strategic portfolio construction that is specific to you and your goals and your needs. That's the key here. Strategic portfolio construction that matches with your risk tolerance, with your goals, with sort of your personality and how you are. Also, I would say aligns with your values. People sometimes like to invest in, maybe they just want to invest in the US because they believe in America. Maybe they want to invest a little bit in Bitcoin because they believe that has value. Maybe they're more interested in having some gold exposure. Maybe they're interested in certain sectors. Maybe they're more of a tech person. Maybe, whatever it might be. Maybe you're kind of a Buffett type like me, where you're very much interested in the way Warren Buffett invests, and you want to hold a large position in Berkshire Hathaway, right? So that all has to be factored in as the market does its crazy up and down forever. So that's just normal. Volatility is normal. Sometimes there's higher volatility times like we're living in now, and sometimes there's lower volatility times. But the name of the game is still the same, no matter, where we're at, what times we're in. So let's get to the topic. It's 5 simple ways to live within a budget. So I think this is the reason I'm bringing this up now, is during times of uncertainty where we think we may or may not be entering a recession, or there's volatility. For me, it's time to get back to foundational, back to basics. And the basics are living within a budget. I talk about this a lot. If you can get the fundamentals right, it's like anything in life. If you can get the basics and the fundamentals right, a lot of the success comes from that, I believe. So at the end of the day, the number one thing I'd say, I've got 5 here, but the first one I would talk about is making a budget. Most people never take the time to sit down and make a budget. I'm a fan of simple budgets. I do use the NerdWallet template. It's kind of an Excel spreadsheet, but I like the way it's laid out. I don't get anything for saying that or anything from NerdWallet. But anyway, the NerdWallet one is one I use. But a budget can actually be done with a piece of paper and a pencil. It's that simple. And here, let me just break it down for you. What you do is you start with your largest monthly fixed cost and you go down in order that way. You start with the largest and you go to the smallest thing, okay? The largest thing for most people is going to be housing. So it's going to be your rent or your mortgage. So you're going to write that number down. That's going to be your first line on your piece of lined paper and your pencil. Now, I like to use a spreadsheet, and a lot of people like spreadsheets, but you can also use a Microsoft Word document. It doesn't matter. It's just a list is really what it is. People get overwhelmed by the idea of budget because people get overwhelmed by numbers a lot of times. Remember, numbers are used to confuse you. The financial industry, banking, they use numbers actually to confuse you at times. And that's why financial literacy is so critical in our society. And so, number one, you've got your monthly mortgage or your rent written down. Second, for most people, is usually either a car payment or it's going to be food. So you're going to put your car payment down, and then you're going to put your food. Hopefully you don't have a car payment. Car payments are very bad, actually. I've come to realize that more and more over time. A big foundational thing, I think, for building wealth is not having a car payment. We ought to be buying cars that we can either pay off quickly or pay in cash for. So I don't mind a car loan for a short amount of time, but we ought to get that paid off and then drive that car a long time. That's actually better for us financially in the long run. But anyway, you got your monthly mortgage or rent, you have your car payment, you have your food, you have your utilities, and it's just going to go down from there. Clothes, fees for any kind of fitness club you might be part of or something for your kids. Kids' educational costs. I mentioned utilities. I mentioned car payment. You've got gas, right? You have gas. You have insurance costs as well. So you have all these things listed. You just go down and down and down until you get to the smallest ones. How much are you spending at Starbucks? How much are you spending eating out? You have all these categories and you're going down, down, down. You're making that list. How much are you spending on hobbies? Are there certain specific hobbies? I have a line item in mind for my comic book and my collecting hobby, right? Where I'm spending a certain amount a month on that. Now, I've tried over the years to make that pay for itself. I try to make hobbies pay for themselves somehow, either by selling things or whatnot. I don't think trying to make hobbies not cost a lot every month. So anyway, that's the first step, a simple budget. You have to make one. You have to spend the time. And so, you will see how eye-opening it is just to make the budget. So then you've got all your expenses listed. You total out that amount. Okay, that's one page. The second page are all your income sources. So typically you're going to have the income from your job, your spouse's job. You're going to have, or your significant other. You're going to have income maybe of a rental property. Maybe you have a little bit of income from some CDs in a bank account, or some income from dividends that you're collecting, you're not reinvesting. Although I'd say it'd be best to reinvest them. So that's how you're going to go. You're going to do those two lists. And then what you need to really make sure it's happening is that all those monthly expenses, on monthly expenses, you also want to include paying yourself first into your investment account. So whatever your investment account is, put the amount that you're putting in every month. If you're putting $500 a month in your investment account, put that as an expense. Okay, you want to compare that bottom line number to the bottom line of your income. Now, a lot of people are actually in the red every month. So they're actually spending more than they're spending more on this side than they are taking in. That is the danger zone. That's the red flag. You're totally not getting ahead. You're totally going into a hole deeper and deeper. So that's what you want to find from those two bottom line numbers. Now, if you find that there's a little extra in there, that you're actually making a little extra every month and you're not spending everything, That's a great sign. That means you're healthy financially on a month-to-month basis. And that extra amount, I would say, put into an emergency fund. Get that emergency fund plumped up would be my advice on that one. Okay, so that's number one, make a budget. Okay, number two, simple ways to live within a budget. Always, 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 I'm a big believer in this. Always pay your credit cards off in full every month. We should not be carrying long-term credit card debt that collects over time and adds up to thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And then we end up paying 18, 19, 20, 25% interest on the junk we bought, or the stuff, I should say, we bought with our credit cards. So that's the key there. You always have to be paying your credit cards off in full every month. That's number two. That has to be a rule of thumb. That has to be a non-negotiable rule for you. Okay. Number three, my number three rule of thumb for living within a budget is, I'm a big believer, Ramit Sethi talks about this. I'm a big believer in getting the big things right. People will notoriously fret over the $5 Starbucks cup of coffee. Probably shouldn't be every day. But anyway, they'll fret over the $5 expense. But then they'll have some crazy car payment. They'll have some truck that they're paying $1,000 a month on. Well, listen, if you'd gotten the car right, you don't have to worry about the little things. You've got the big things right. Get the housing right. People will they used to say when I first started buying homes that you just max yourself to the limit. You stretch yourself to get the biggest mortgage and house you can buy. That was a huge trick. That was a trick by the realtors and the National Realtors Association to get you to spend more and to increase their commissions. That was absolutely a stupid thing for people to talk about and say. A monthly rental or a monthly mortgage payment needs to be comfortable, very comfortable for you, okay? So I am not a believer in stretching too much on that. It stresses out the entire rest of the budget. We have to learn to live within our means. So if we can only afford a $3,000 a month rental or a $4,000 a month mortgage, then that's what we should stick to. We should not be convinced by any salesperson or association or whatever, or vested interest, to stretch that to $5,000. Oh, it's only $1,000 more a month. You can do that. Or to $6,000. That's crazy. That's setting you up for failure. So we have to live within our means and get the big things right. That's number three. Okay, number four. We have to pay ourselves first. We have to be a middle-class wealth builder. You have to have automated investments that are automatically coming out of your paycheck that you can afford. It has to be within your budget. But please, if it's 5%, 6%, the ideal is 10% and up. I've seen some things, Ramit Sethi talks about his ideal is, I think, 10% invested every month and then 20% to savings. That's pretty high for most people. I live in a high cost of living area. That'd be very high for most people. The reality is you have to be doing something. It has to be, I definitely believe it should be at least 5%. That's the very bottom minimum. It should be more like 10. But the bottom line is it has to be some automated amount where you're paying yourself first every month and then not worrying about it. And it's going into a diversified, low-cost S&P 500 index fund and some bond funds, and you're letting that grow and compound over time. So that's number four, is you've got to pay yourself first if you want to live with a simple, within your means, within a budget. Okay. The fifth idea I want to throw out to you is this. Be critical with yourself about identifying bad habits. We all have them. I have them. And I have to look in the mirror sometimes and have a critical discussion with myself about what are my bad habits. For a while there, a few years ago, I got a little too wild with the collectibles. And I really had to look at it and say, should I really be spending this much per month on collectibles? I love the art. I love the concept of collecting comic books. I like the nostalgia of it. I like the graphics. I love the art. I see them as works of art. I see the same thing with different cards that I like. But at the end of the day, that is such a luxury. If I'm spending that money on that stuff, I have to really keep that to a reasonable amount that is within my budget. At one time I did sell this, I got out of it, but I think I had spent a few $1,000s on a box of collectible cards. And, I kept it around for a while, but after time, I really started looking at it and thinking about it and saying, should I really have spent thousands of dollars on a box of collectible cards? If I was honest with myself, the answer was no. So I sold those. I got out of it. Probably lost a few $100s. But at the end of the day, it was a valuable lesson, because I just had to look in the mirror and say that wasn't within reason for me. I'm not making millions per year. So anyway, those are 5 simple ways to live within a budget. I hope that helps. Hey, if you get value out of Money Vikings videos and the blog truewealth.moneyvikings.com, please like and subscribe, and please share our video and put on the bell notification. That helps the whole, YouTube algorithm, and we can grow the channel. I'd like to keep growing this channel over time, and it's really fun for me, and adding value, and sort of talking about ways that middle-class people can build wealth. That's our whole angle. So thanks a lot. See you on the next one.